As we're expecting former Senator and former presidential candidate John Edwards on the day of his indictment and his first appearance in court to be making a statement, and we'll take it live as soon as we get it. Let's take this issue now to our legal panel. Former federal prosecutor, Fox News legal analyst Lise Rielle, and defense attorney Tad Nelson. Lise, look, as a lawyer, I read the indictment, and I got to tell you, this thing is legally thin. Don't you think?
No, not necessarily at all. I mean, the prosecution has to do something and keep it very simple. He was running for president. The scandal would have ended the run for his presidency. These volunteers or these contributors have maxed out on their contributions legally. This was a way for them to help a friend and get around government regulation, and they did so without him reporting it. That's the government's theory of the case.
Tad Nelson, let me go to you. I mean, the defense here is pretty clear. Wait a minute. These are private contributions and or loans, and the real purpose is to keep this from my wife, right?
Absolutely. And here's what I don't understand. What is the DOJ doing these days? What is Eric Holder doing? If I ran my office the way Eric Holder runs the DOJ, I'd be in the tank. He's chasing Barry Bonds. He's chasing Rogers Clemens. Now he's chasing John Edwards. All these guys are morally and ethically challenged, but they haven't committed crimes. He needs to let them go.
Wait a second, though. This is a guy that was running for the president of the United States that's allegedly flouting campaign and contribution laws.
He did.
Yeah. Thank you. So
he had a girlfriend.
No, but that's different. What we're talking about here is whether or not these campaign contributions were illegal. And the government, if it sticks to a very simple theory of the case, may be able to prove that.
Let me correct you here. You referred to campaign contributions.
Sorry,
the defense says these are not campaign contributions whatsoever.
Right.
Isn't John Edwards entitled to have a scintilla of a private life in which private transactions take place?
Greg, when you're running for president, the law says that you cannot accept anything without declaring it. You can accept a lot by declaring it. Not accept anything without declaring it that is going to is meant to influence your campaign. If you don't think that those donors wanted to influence his campaign.
Tad, she makes a good point. What if the purpose is a dual purpose? It's to influence the campaign, but also keep the matter from his wife. What then?
You make a great point, Greg. The reality of it is, this is first time this has ever been looked at. There has never been anything brought on like this. There is no bright line rule. We don't have a but-for rule yet. We don't have something that establishes that say, hey, he's running for president and he benefited. That's not what the rule is. And in this situation, we've got two situations. You've got two people benefiting from this money. You've got Mrs. Hunter benefiting and you've got John Edwards. Imagine the chaos her life would be thrown in. So now you have these people willing to give their money. It's not going to a campaign fund. It doesn't say campaign contribution, and they know what it's going for.
Okay.
It's to hide a mistress.
Yeah, but
you know what? Until we have a law that you can't do that, it's okay.
Gee, you know what? Sometimes people get really smart about how to flout the campaign laws, right? They're not just going to send it straight to a check into his campaign fund. They're going to try to get around the law by doing exactly what's alleged here. That I'm not saying that's what happened, but I think the government has a strong case. And by the way, let me tell you, this gets in front of a jury. That jury, this is the same kind of people that he has just wooed and persuaded for all these years. I don't think they like him so much anymore.
Yeah, but they're not going to be the same people. These people are going to be voir dire to make sure that they can just decide this case based on the evidence inside the courtroom and not all the other activities of John Edwards.
If the evidence in the indictment is true, and the evidence in the indictment says, look, there were people, the donors, talking back and forth saying, just send the checks to me. I'll take care of anything that's needed. This was after the big brouhaha over his haircut. Just send the bills to me. I'll take care of everything. Isn't that a campaign finance?
Tad, can I get to the issue of whether the judge will allow the defense to call experts to the witness stand to weigh in on the validity of this legal approach? And I mentioned the guy who was the former elections commissioner who said, if I had reviewed this, I would have said this is not a violation. Can you introduce that via an expert witness?
Absolutely, and that's going to be so important in this case. I mean, what was the intent of everybody involved? I mean, here was a man trying to hide everything from his wife. You talk about the wheels going off the wagon. I mean, that would have happened in his life, not so much his campaign. That would have followed.
Hey,
but
Lise,
his life would have been ruined.
So the first time, I agree that this case is novel, but so the first time that a prosecution brings a case that's a little bit novel, we're going to say, oh, that's got to be dismissed, and let's bring an expert in to say that? No, that's not the way it works.
Lise, I could have sworn that when you were part of the defense team for then-President Bill Clinton during the course of his impeachment and other ancillary legal problems, you were claiming there's a difference between official capacity and private action. And doesn't the same rule that you argued back then apply to John Edwards today?
Well, Greg, I am a lawyer, so I can talk out of both sides of my mouth.
You clearly are.
But also, don't forget that President Clinton was impeached in the House. He was not removed from his office in the Senate, but he was impeached and held to have committed a high crime or misdemeanor by the lying, by the cover-up.
But you'll admit you were making a really good argument, the same argument you would now be making for John Edwards, right, Lise?
Well, but it's a little bit different, because where he really lied was in the deposition with Paula Jones, not just going on television saying I didn't, have sex with that woman.
And
you're admitting the president lied in his deposition,
well, that's what the Bar Association determined and took his bar card from him.
Tad, you want to weigh in on that?
I do, and that's what's gotten unfortunate with all this stuff, Greg. Hey, we all have front doors on our house because what goes on in our house should be private, but these politicians, these athletes, for some reason they get to ask all these personal questions, and then all of a sudden the DOJ becomes the morals police, and that's ridiculous. These people never get busted for what they did. They get busted for lying about something they did that was wrong or, immoral. That's unfortunate, because if you leave these private lives alone, we wouldn't have these situations. The DOJ is wasting tons of money. Let's get up there. Let's go fight these Wall Street criminals.
Why not make an example?
Leave these people alone.
Why not? If he did what's alleged in this indictment, why not make an example of him so other politicians don't do it and think they can get away with it?
All right, we're live at the courthouse in Winston-Salem. Talk about a fall from grace for a guy who was a very prominent and rich attorney, a U.S. senator, ran for president twice, was the vice presidential nominee, and now he's looking at 5 years behind bars if convicted. He's there. He's going to speak. We'll be live at the courthouse in a moment.